Takes a lot of courage to fire shots at the cage system right off the bat. I could be putting my life in grave danger by making this video, but yet I press on because it's the right thing to do. And I feel that CAGED is a great system for people to learn different patterns on the guitar and take some of those, classic chords and be able to apply them all over the neck and how they interact and stack with each other. But I do feel it's a bit of a crutch and it kind of makes everything sound the same, right? So I'm gonna take something today where I'm gonna actually simplify that, because I do think that ultimately guitar is an instrument of patterns and shapes, but we can simplify it and then still leverage some of the great things that make guitar a unique instrument, okay? So what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna take this in two different keys and we're just gonna use two shapes, just a minor shape and a major shape. And we're gonna show how you can utilize a smaller system of the CAGED thing to actually expand what you can do on a guitar, okay? So we're gonna start in the key of A, all right? I think it's the prettiest key, especially on a guitar in just regular standard tuning. It sounds great, and we're gonna focus on just two different shapes, okay? However you wanna play an A major shape, which again, open on the A string, 2D, 2G, 2B, open E. You can actually get all 6 strings in there if you want that low E in there too. Again, the beautiful thing about this, in fact, A, little known fact, A is actually the A in CAGED. Might not have known that. But we're using that right there. I'm using my middle finger, my ring finger, and my pointer finger. Again, you can play it however you want. But if you use this shape of it, this fingering of it, you can really change very quickly from major to minor, okay? So A major, just take your pinky off, put your pointer finger, the fret back, so the first fret on the B string, and that goes major to minor. You probably already know that, but I think navigating through this entire key using just these two shapes is the way to do it. So I'll demonstrate what we're doing here. We've got the 1 chord, the 2 chord, the 3 chord, the 4 chord, the 5 chord, 6, back to 1. Okay? So now I think that this is a much more useful way to think about navigating through a key, and eventually we'll have a lot of just musical benefits from it, okay? In fact, let's just take those first 3 chords, that 1 chord, to the 2 chord, to the 3 chord, 2. That's already like a tasty little jam, but you can't get in CAGED. A, B minor, C sharp minor, okay? And again, the naming isn't necessarily that important, but the cool thing is what we're doing to utilize the acoustic guitarness of this entire sound is I'm still getting that A to tie these chords together. In fact, a B minor would be just, you've probably seen a B minor like this, right here, which is great. Here's the difference between that B minor and the B minor I just played. A B minor with an A in the bass. Again, you can think of that as B minor stuff. Whatever you think about it, it's just that chord, the second chord in the key. And already I think that sounds more musical than A, B minor. That's closed, right? We're expanding that stunted CAGED mind right now. We're getting that open, and then just moving that shape. Again, it's just an A minor shape. My pointer finger's on the 3rd fret of the B string. So 3, 4, 4. Now a whole step from that is where the 3 chord lies, and we can still get that open A and E in there if we want. So the 1 chord, 2, 3, 2. And that's as easy as some of the they may be the first 2 chords that you ever learn picking up a guitar, is A major and A minor. Just using that, you're already playing all the way through the neck in a cool musical way that will impress your CAGED friends. While they're busy going like, oh, let me play an F major chord. Yeah, F. You're just smoothly navigating, And then you actually get a little more familiar with how the intervals between chords change in the context of a key, right? So Let's continue fourth. Before I do that, let's continue fourth. Who talks like that? I would never say that, right? Let's continue fourth. It's so funny, like, when you get in a professorial mood, your whole vernacular changes. So after that 3 chord, we're gonna go 1 fret higher from where your middle finger and ring finger are, and then drop your pinky back down to get the 4 chord, right? Which is a D major. D being the D in CAGED. Why do I think that's so funny? But there we go, say it's D. You can just line it up with the 7th fret. You can still get that A in there, right? Because A is the 5th in D. Then go a step higher from there. And there's E. Just line it up with that 9th fret. I'm still getting that open, get that high E on top. You can even get that low E. Just kind of like a prettier sound, getting that A, adding that A to an E chord. And then we'll get the 6th chord, which is just the 11th fret, 11th fret, and 10th fret in just those. So we're just taking the D, G, and B strings and changing the 3rd to be either major or minor. So 1 is major, 2 is minor, 3 is minor, 4 is major, 5 is major, 6 is minor, and you're done. Right? Sounds great. Why else does it sound great? Because I'm using Elixir Strings, the sponsor of this video. Seriously, it's time, guys. If you've still not used Elixir Strings, what are you waiting for? What is it? Help your boy out, because they are definitely like the best sponsor that I have. I love Elixir so much. It's the most organic relationship I have with any company because I use them on all my acoustic guitars and electric guitars now too. If you haven't used your electric strings, they're actually amazing. People also ask me what bass strings I use. Elixirs. Anything that Elixir makes, I think they're the best, and they last super long. They sound great. Sound great on this Martin D18 I've got right now. Even if you used CAGED, it'll still sound good with Elixir Strings. So thank you to Elixir for sponsoring this video. Get yourself a set of the 8020 bronze, which are the ones I generally use, but I like them all. So check them out. Affiliate link in the description. Thanks so much. All right. So what I said by intervals, it's like if we take the relationship between each of these strings, an interval is just a space between 2 frets, right? Space between anything, really. If I go from that 1 chord to the 2 chord here, it's like, all right, well, what is my space on the D string? A whole step, 2 frets. How about the G string? A whole step, 2 frets. How about the B string? Actually, I go from here to here. So that's only a half step, all right? And once you start playing, you know, kind of cool, like, scale stuff, that didn't sound good, but if it were to sound good, those intervals make sense. And I think a lot of those come from knowing the distances between the chords, because then eventually you can use that in a lead context too, right? Which again, you can use a CAGED too. And again, I'm kind of joking with the CAGED thing. If it's helping you out, it's great, but this is something you can also use in supplement with the CAGED thing that I think is actually an easier way to get started, okay? So experiment with that. Really just maybe go from just the 1 to the 4 to the 5. Maybe if you've never played anything like that in A, just think 2, as in 2 2nd fret, to 7th fret, to 9, 2, 7, 9, 7. Make them 7 chords, and then you're playing the blues. And all you have to do there is just change the shape, right? So here's that 4 chord, go 7th fret, 5th fret, 7th fret. And now we've got a dominant 7 bluesier type shape, okay? So let's do the whole thing, but now let's do it in a different key just to showcase how you can use the same idea, but then change all the chords. So we're gonna do this in the key of E, because we get a lot of the same benefits from the key of A. We get all the open strings helping us out aside from the ones that we're fretting, which we're just gonna focus on 3 strings fretted and then 3 strings open. The high E and low E string and the B string. Okay, so those are always gonna be open. And then we're just gonna take this major shape, which again, in the key of A stuff, this was the minor shape. So it's really the same shape, but we're rooting it on the low E string, which makes it major, okay? So now, what you might think is like, all right, the difference between major and minor is a minor chord has a flat 3. So let's go to the 2 chord in this key. Let's just go a whole step higher and then flatten the 3rd. And the way I like to do this actually is I like to use my ring finger, my pinky, and my pointer finger. That's a more comfortable reach for me, all right? Now, the way to go back between major and minor in this fingering is you just drop your middle finger like a hammer right there. So this is F sharp major, and this is F sharp minor, okay? So now, even playing the E major, I'll play it without my pointer finger because I want to keep this ready in case I want to flatten that 3rd. So there's the 1 chord, the 2 chord. So there's the 1 chord, the 2 chord. See how I just did that? So now it's open, 4, 4, 2, open, open. The 3 chord is also minor. Remember, a whole step away, so we have whole, whole, just like a scale degree, which we'll talk about in a second. And then a half step, we go back to the major chord, which is really an A major. The 5 chord with that major shape, and the 6 chord with the other shape. So again, 6 ends up being 11, 11, 9. Okay, 1 chord, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so I think that's just a really cool kind of musical way to talk about this stuff. And now when it comes to scale intervals, I think that's another thing that can be integrated with this a little more easily that makes more sense, whereas like CAGED might kind of leave out how those intervals, whole and half steps, really relate to each other. So you've probably heard, and maybe you know how to build a major scale, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Let's just do it on the E string. We start with the note, we go whole step, which is 2 frets. Whole, another whole step, half. So open, 2, 4, 5, whole, 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 half. That's how you can play any major scale. You can play it linearly across one string like this, or you can play it with a hand shape. Like, we talk about this on my Patreon and other videos and stuff. Please check that out if you're interested. But what's cool when you do these shapes, you can do that same linear approach, but do them as chords now. So we have whole, whole, half, whole, whole, half would be the dominant 7, or the minor 7 flat 5 diminished chord, back to E. Okay, so you can kind of hear how that is the same as, and then you start to make that connection between how chords move versus how notes move. And once you really kind of put all this stuff together, I think your melodies are going to become more interesting. You're going to have more of a framework for experimenting and getting around the neck in the fretboard. And you're not going to be stuck in a cage of your own making. And I think that's where I end the video, folks, because that was unintended, but I think it was pretty smooth. So thank you to Elixir Strings for sending these strings over and sponsoring the video. And if you have any questions or comments, hit me up in the comment section, Instagram, or the website. I'll talk to y'all soon.